To truly understand the Bhagavad Gita as it was spoken by Lord Krishna, we need to stop looking at the Bhagavad Gita through the blinkered vision of Advaita, Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, etc., and other philosophies that have been superimposed as a template over it. And we need to see the Bhagavad Gita truly in its original form. And to see it in its original form, we must understand that the Bhagavad Gita is not one system of philosophy, but it is an integration of multiple philosophies. It is indeed a synthesis of the most prominent philosophies that were present at the time that Lord Krishna appeared. Indeed, it is a synchronistic fusion of many things. It includes, of course, the Upanishads, because as it is said, Krishna is the cowherd boy and the Upanishads are the cows. And Krishna milks the Upanishads, the cows, and gives us the milk in the form of the Bhagavad Gita. And in the Upanishads, which I have covered with reference to the Bhagavad Gita, I have pointed out which Upanishads contain verses that are reflected in the Bhagavad Gita. And indeed, there are many Upanishads. Perhaps 220 are accepted. And the Bhagavad Gita reflects those from the Vedantic Upanishads and also from the Sankhya Upanishads. And besides the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita also contains various philosophies that were very, very prevalent and strong in the populace. And therefore, if you look at the Vedas, there are many ways of studying the Vedas based upon different philosophical systems. And these different philosophical systems are known as darshanas. And there are different darshanas of the Vedas. There are those which are Ashtikya and then those that are Nastikya. Those that believe in the Supreme Lord, which believes in the deity, which believes in God. And then there are philosophies that do not believe in God. So what Krishna has done is that he has taken the most important, most prevalent among the darshanas. And which darshanas? The Ashtikya darshanas. He has taken the theistic versions of the important philosophies and he has described them in the Bhagavad Gita and used them to be one more path towards attaining union and worship of Lord Sri Krishna. Earlier, I have pointed out to you about Sankhya, which is the most important of the philosophies or darshanas, and is almost synonymous with Jnana. And I also pointed out how Vedanta is introduced in the Bhagavad Gita as the all-encompassing and yet non-contradictory philosophy that includes Sankhya. Today, I want to cover what is known as the Karma Mimansa and how it is reflected in the Bhagavad Gita. very important darshana of the Vedas. A very important school of philosophy for studying the Vedas. And if you look at it, what does Mimansa mean? Mimansa means reflection, it means thinking, it means studying, it means meditating upon. And there are two types of Mimamsas that study the Vedas. One is called the Purva Mimamsa, also known as Karma Mimamsa, and it also includes what is known as the Uttara Mimamsa, or the later part of the Mimamsa. Purva Mimamsa deals with the Samhitas and the Brahmanas. It essentially deals with Vedic rituals and prayers that are there within the Bhagavad Gita, in the Vedas. And the Bhagavad Gita certainly supports them, and we will see how. On the other hand, you also have Uttar Mimamsa, which deals with the later part of the Vedas, which is the Upanishads. As I said, the Sankhya Upanishads as well as the Vedanta Upanishads. And these are covered when we do Vedanta and when we do Sankhya. So, in the Karma Mimamsa is largely based upon a philosophy that was initiated or originated from the great sage Jaimini. It's a very, very early sage who brought about the description and the, shall we say, exposition of Karma Mimamsa. And Jaimini wrote what we call as the Dharma Sutra. So just like you have the Vedanta Sutra or the Brahma Sutra, which is described by, or which is written by Badranarayana, you have the Dharma Sutra, which has been written by Jaimini. So in the Brahma Sutra, it begins with the statement, Atato Brahma Jignasa. And Atato Brahma Jignasa means, let us begin the study of God. Whereas Jaimini, when he starts his Dharma Sutra, he begins with the statement, Atato Dharma Jignasa. So he begins by saying, let us now understand what is Dharma. This is very important because the Bhagavad Gita is all about Dharma. So doing Dharma. Krishna does not say that he has come to give people moksha. He says he has come to give people dharma. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. He does not say yada yada hi mokshasya. He has not come here to give you moksha. He has come here to teach you dharma. And moksha is the natural corollary to performance of dharma in the correct way. Similarly, when you see the philosophy of Jaimini, when you see the philosophy of Karma Mimamsa also does not lay too much stress on the moksha part of it. According to Jaimini, the world has been created by God with on one side the Devtas and on the other side the Manushas. And the Manushas exist and fulfill their needs by fulfilling the needs of the Devtas, who nurture and nourish the Manushas in turn. And thus, human beings, by the accumulation of punya, which is the nurture of the Devtas by fire sacrifice, by yajna, by havan, by agni, through the mouth of the gods, which is agni, you perform fire sacrifice or havan, and the performance of havan or fire sacrifice leads to rainfall, it leads to prosperity, it leads to the path that goes directly to Swarga. Whereas, if you perform these actions, you are assured not just of prosperity in this life and that all your needs will be met, you will go to heaven, you will go to Swarg, and having gone to Swarg, from there, you will then be reborn on this earth in an endless cycle. And when you are reborn on this earth in an endless cycle, what will happen? You will be born in a family which is both more prosperous, more pious, with a more beautiful body, and you will acquire greater knowledge. So, in all these ways, you will be benefited by the performance of Karma Mimamsic philosophy, which is the performance of Karma Kanda philosophy. However, when the Bhagavad Gita starts, the Bhagavad Gita goes directly and immediately into criticizing the performance of Vedic sacrifice and ritual for getting any fruit. And what do we mean by getting any fruit? It means very clearly that this fruit and the performance of the activity for the fruit is but only to be condemned. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter, text 42, where it begins, Krishna declares to Arjuna, Yam imam pushpitam vacham pravadantya vipaschitah Vedavada Ratah Partha Nanyadastiti Vadinah Kamatmana Swargapara Janma Karma Phala Pradhan Kriya Vishesha Baulam Bhoga Ishwarya Gatim Prati. Now, initially, Krishna appears to criticize the Karma Mimamsa, and he says, men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various methods for elevation to heavenly planets, the gaining of multiple fruits on this earth, good birth, power, knowledge, etc. And being desirous of enjoyment and sense gratification and a decadent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. So, Pao, Krishna is seen to condemn the performance of Vedic sacrifice. In fact, he goes on to say why he condemns. He says that Bhoga Ishwarya Prasaktanam Tayaparta Chetasam Vyavasatmika Buddhi Samadhav na Vidyate in chapter 2, text 44. Those whose minds are far too attached to enjoyment, sense gratification, material possessions and pleasures, and who are disturbed and bewildered by such things, such people can never have the determination, the resolute determination of bhakti, of devotional service to the Supreme Lord. This can never take place in people who are attached to this philosophy. In text 45, Krishna points out that Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto Niryogakshem Atmavan. Please understand, Arjun, that the Vedas merely deal with Prakriti. They deal with the three gunas of Prakriti, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. You have to rise beyond these, become Gunatita, become Nirdvandva, be beyond, go beyond duality, go beyond the gunas. Become free from all anxieties for gain and protection and remain established in your natural position as the soul. In text 46, Krishna points out, Yavan artha udapane sarvatah samplutodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanatah. Just like all the purposes served by a small pond can at once be fulfilled by a great lake, by a great reservoir of water, similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served or received by one who knows the purpose behind them. In fact, Krishna has said later in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedaisya sarver aham eva vedyo vedanta krit veda vid eva chaham. Because Krishna wants you to transcend these. And he points out that you have a right to perform your prescribed duty. Yes, if the Vedas prescribe that you have certain social obligations, family obligations, if you have certain obligations to perform certain Vedic rituals, to perform your Swadharma, do all that. But you're not entitled to any fruits. Because the purpose of work, including Vedic karma, is to remember God and to forget self. To remember God and to forget self. And one may think that, oh, Krishna has said that we need not study the Vedas. I remember talking to someone from the Arya Samaj, and I quoted him these verses from the Bhagavad Geeta. And he was quite aghast. And he said, it's very bad. How can that be there in the Bhagavad Gita? And I said, indeed, it is there. But behold, lo and behold, in the very next chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, in the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which deals largely with Karma Kanda, Krishna points out that you should perform your Vedic karmas. You have to follow the Vedas and perform their duties. But not for the fruit, which is already said. I mean, everybody knows this verse, which is there in the Bhagavad Geeta. Karmanyavadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachan ma karma phala hetur bhur mate sangostva karmani. But if you take it in context with the previous verses, the word karma does not only mean work. I must tell you that Sanskrit words have different meanings according to the context in which it is used. So karma could mean Vedic karmas, it could mean duties prescribed by the Vedas, it could mean work, it could mean the impressions that are left for repetitive action or the law of karma. So there are many ways to look at the word karma. And this oft quoted verse where Krishna says, Karmanyavadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachan ma karma phala hetur bhur mate sangostva karmani. You take it from the first verse that I quoted. Yam imam pushpitam vacham pravadantya vapaschitah vedavadaratah partha nanyadastiti vadinah. So where Krishna has said that people are performing Vedic actions or Vedic karmas for the purpose of gaining fruit, he follows it up by saying you have a right to perform your Vedic actions, the duties prescribed by the Vedas, to do your work also, but it is to be performed without being attached to any fruit or without any expectation of any fruit. And that is what Krishna recommends. And so that you may understand that he is not rejecting the Vedas or the Vedic Karma Kanda completely, that he is not rejecting the Karma Mimansa completely, because Karma Mimansa simply says what is here in Bhagavad Gita, that Saha Yagna Praja Shrishva Purovacha Prajapatihi Anena Prasavishyavadam Eshavostva Ishtakamaduk. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and devtas, along with sacrifice or yajna, havan, karma kanda, and blessed them by saying, Be thou happy by the performance of the sacrifice, because by this performance of sacrifice it will bestow on you all desirable things. So Krishna says very clearly that this is how Krishna created this universe. He created this universe with the Devatas and with the individuals. Don't take any other foolish translation of this. It's clearly what it says and clearly what it means. Devan bhavayato nena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantah shreya param avapshyatah. When you perform the sacrifice, the devatas being performed, being pleased by the sacrifice, will also please you. And you will nourish each other and there will reign general prosperity for all. Indeed, this universe is founded on the principle of reciprocity. If we receive, we must give. And if we give, surely God will see that we will receive. If not from the same person, we will receive it from one more person, because all of them are members of the universal bank of karma. All of them have the Lord who is seated within their heart. And one who does not perform acts of giving, one who does not perform acts of sacrifice, he's a thief. Krishna says that in chapter 3, text 12. Ishtan bhogan hivo deva dasyante yagna bhavitah ter dattan apradayabhyo yo bhungte stena eva saha. Stena eva saha. The Devatas, being satisfied by the performance of Yajna, supply all the necessities to man. But he who enjoys these gifts without offering them to the Devatas in return is surely a thief. Indeed, we give and we receive. To give and to receive is part of the eternal dance of the cosmos. And if you try to foul up this dance by receiving without giving, you are truly considered a thief, and people will shun you. The Devatas will shun you. You will not receive in the world what you need. Rainfall, prosperity, food, grain. Whatever you need to survive within this world is obtained by the blessings of the Devatas. And therefore, it's very important to give, not just to the Devatas through Yajna, but following this law of reciprocity, we must have an attitude of giving to the Lord who is seated in the hearts of all people around us. Krishna says in third chapter, text 13, Yagna shishtai shine santo muchante sarva kil vishay bhunjate tetva agham papa ye pachante atma karanat. That those devotees are released from all kinds of sin because they eat food that is first offered to the divine. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. So this is also a part of karma Mimansa, that you need to perform this fire sacrifice, and when you perform this fire sacrifice, you will also receive from the Lord, and you will become free from sin. Whereas if you simply eat in forgetfulness of God, in forgetfulness of the Devatas, and in full focused concentration of self, you will only eat sin, you will suffer. So Krishna points out, Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhava yagnad bhavati parjanyo yagna karma samudbhava. So Krishna points out, all living beings subsist on food, and this food is obtained from the result of rain. And rain is produced by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. So you have to understand that the performance of yajna in the land makes possible rainfall in the land. And by the rainfall in the land, grain and food, and vegetables and fruits are grown. And that is what all living beings subsist on. So Krishna thus points out and affirms the philosophy of karma Mimansa. And as he confirms this karma Mimansa, he points out in text 15, karma brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmaksharam samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yagne pratishtitam. The Vedas prescribe certain regulated activities. And the Vedas are directly manifest from God. They are without an author. They are apurusheya. They come directly from the words of God. And consequently, by following the Vedas and performing the actions as prescribed in the Vedas, including fire sacrifice and yajna, divinity pervades the land. Everything is situated in transcendence, Krishna says. Everything is situated in transcendence. And indeed, again, he condemns those who do not follow the Vedas. Evaram evam pravartitam chakram nano vartiyatiha yaha aghayur indriyaramo mogam partha sajivati. My dear Arjuna, a man who does not follow this prescribed Vedic system of sacrifice certainly leads a life of selfishness and of sin. For a person delighting only in his senses, such a person lives entirely in vain. So, there are other aspects that are there in the Bhagavad Gita which also deal with this. It's important to note here that in Purva Mimamsa, while they mention the offerings that are made to the Devtas, they do not focus on the Devtas specially as individuals, saying that there is this God or there is that God. They just offer it generally to divinity. That is how it is performed, with not much emphasis on the gods, but emphasis on the fire sacrifice that performing sacrifice. And whenever they perform the yajna, you will notice that they will say, idam agnaya, idam na mama. So the offering is made to the Devta, but it is not meant for me. So very clearly it is pointed out, every time you perform the ahuti, when you put the ghee, when you put the samagri into the fire, you always say that it is not meant for me. Idam namama. And this is the secret of sacrifice. The ability to remember God and forget self. Idam Krishnaya idam namama. So when you offer to Agni, when you offer to Vayu, when you offer to the various gods of the elements, you are primarily saying it is not meant for me. The principle is remember the divine and forget yourself. And ultimately, all sacrifice is meant for God, for Krishna, for the one supreme deity. Yatha taror moola nishtanena triptayanti skando vijopashakah prano parachyatindriyam sarvaranam ya achuteja. See, you can sprinkle water on the leaves, on the flowers, you can sprinkle water on the fruit, on the stem of the plant. But when you water the root of the plant, automatically the water goes to the flowers, the leaves, the stem, the fruit, everything it goes to. So also when you perform yajna or sacrifice to Bhagavan, to Lord Krishna, he is the root. And by offering to the root, automatically all the devtas are nurtured therein. And next time I will explain to you how one uses, Krishna uses in the Bhagavad Gita. See, what Krishna does is he affirms different philosophies, he affirms different uh, schools of thought, and then he tells you what you should do. He takes you from there to the next level. So I want to show you that in this particular session, I have covered that aspect where Krishna has actually gone on to explain how Vedic karmas are essential for the average person. And having said so, he has affirmed the Vedas. And he has introduced the idea of idam na mama, which is for you, not for me. He has affirmed the idea of giving, because their attitude of giving invokes the law of reciprocity. But more important, it brings about the process of ego annihilation. It brings about the process of ego attenuation. And sitting before the Vedic fire with the sonoric Vedic chanting, the hypnotic chanting of the Vedas, also seeing the flickering hypnotic flame of the yajna fire, one goes into a trance. And while there is not great emphasis on the moksha part of it, it is also pointed out that through the performance of Vedic dharma, with the correct attitude, not for fruit, not for fruit, not for heaven, not for better birth, not for getting things on this earth, but if you do it as a sacrifice, then you become free from karma and return to God. Yagnartharth karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. So with this, I come to the conclusion of this part of the karma Mimansa. And next time I'll do the second part where Krishna explains to you other forms of yajna, other forms of sacrifice besides Vedic fire sacrifice, which he has affirmed, and the place or the position of the various devas. So, if you have any queries or questions on the subject matter that has been covered today in the lecture, please feel free to go ahead and ask. For some reason, you are not able to communicate with me by voice, you can kindly go ahead and write the question down, and it will be shared with me on chat. I am waiting for questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Does anyone have any questions? So what is important is you should stop looking at the Bhagavad Gita through the blinkered vision of this philosophy or that philosophy, which is merely a template superimposed on the Bhagavad Gita. Try to understand the Bhagavad Gita as it was originally meant and spoken. And that this Bhagavad Gita essentially is not one color. It is the colors of the rainbow, which when seen through a prism, you can see that it is multiple philosophies, which after passing through the prism, it appears white as the Bhagavad Gita. But in fact, it is multiple philosophies and multiple Upanishads which find their expression through Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Anyone has any questions? Please speak now. Nobody has anything to say? All right. Hari Om, Jai Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna.